So welcome everyone to the HR Huddle. I'm Eloise Shelton of Vanilla Recruitment. We specialise in recruiting HR, marketing, office and accountancy roles. Today we're joined by Eric Bai to demystify AI and understand how we can get it working for us in the HR space. Today's session will last approximately an hour. The session is going to be recorded, so if I can ask you to mute yourselves if you haven't already. But if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat box and I'll ask them to Eric as we're going along. Ask as many questions as you like. There is no silly question. AI is moving incredibly quickly, and it's it's really useful to stay up to date and be able to implement it into the business and get the most out of AI. So I'm going to pass over to Eric to share his knowledge and understanding of AI with us, if that's okay. So thank you for joining us, Eric.
Thanks, Eloise. Yeah, I mean, like Eloise said, feel free to drop your questions in. I've never had a bad question in all my time doing these. I'll kind of start and do my best to kind of demystify AI for all of you. An introduction to it, how it works, why it matters, and then some aspects as well of kind of opportunities to apply it within HR. So I'll get going, but again, yeah, just think of it as a conversation and feel free to drop your questions in. So Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, says AI is potentially more profound to humanity than fire or electricity. The range of opinions here goes from, is it going to be like fire, electricity, the Industrial Revolution, or kind of more like the internet or the iPhone. He's not necessarily talking about what AI can do today, even though that is already having a pretty major impact within the business world, but where AI is going over the next few years. So a little bit about me and my journey. My first job in tech was for an AI-based company out of Berlin. After that, I went on into operation leadership roles, customer operations, product operations, and then head of operations roles. First full-time employee at a fintech startup, building teams and launching products. From there, I went into enterprise digital transformation, leading a team of digital transformation managers across the country, helping people get value from technology. So across my whole career, it's been all about helping people use technology to make better decisions, get efficiency, and create more value for their customers. And then I was a broadband startup when ChatGPT came out and realized how much of an impact that was going to have. Previously, we used to fight for anywhere between 1 and 10% efficiency gains, and that that was quite good for us. Traditional AI was pretty inaccessible for a lot of businesses, and ChatGPT took the best AI model and platform in the world and made it accessible to everyone for free or £20 a month. So that kind of ease of use really made me realize that this was going to have a massive impact on businesses that traditionally couldn't have afforded that technology. And even those businesses that could in the past, this was going to be a whole new journey for them. So AI in everyday life. When you get a Netflix recommendation or you see an ad or your Google Maps is telling you what direction to go, that's more kind of different type of traditional AI, I'll refer to it. But now we've got something called generative AI and large language models. It makes interacting with them very smart, but limited and no big data is needed. ChatGPT is the fastest growing product of all time, going to 100 million users in 2 months. If you compare that to TikTok's 9 months or Instagram's 30 months, while adoption might feel slow, it is growing exponentially fast. So kind of performance of these models is really interesting space. They're doing a variety of studies at the moment, as well as something called benchmarking to see how well they perform against standard tests that humans take. So within software development, for example, Microsoft's seeing 55% increases in efficiency. That's being backed up with other studies seeing anywhere from kind of 20% to 300%. I'm not a developer, but I can build a full stack web app in an afternoon now. So for me personally, it's probably closer to 1,000%. Within law, the GPT-4 is scores in the 90th percentile in the bar exam. Within medicine, you have tools like ChatGPT and Google's Gemini being tested in places like the Mayo Clinic and a variety of other medical settings. And then fun one is in wine. It gets in the 86th percentile on the certified sommelier theory exam. But the key takeaway here is that this is the worst AI will ever be. They're continuing to train bigger and better models. Those models are able to take in things like video now, kind of speak back with emotional tones, and generate images. So we'll continue to see huge advancements. So how it works, I promised this is the only technical slide, but I thought it was important to add a little bit of context. So essentially, when they're building a large language model or generative model like ChatGPT, they take a ton of text. So think all the text on the internet, Facebook's new open source model that they just trained recently, they trained on about 12 trillion words. So a significant amount of data going in there to the point that they're almost running out. So the cost of training these models, when you have all the computer chips and electricity, GPT-4 is estimated to be around $100 million to train. And now they're looking at spending billions to train just a single model. At that scale, it's crazy because they'll spend billions and it would fit on a thumb drive. So as you increase data and compute, we're seeing continuing advances in how capable, intelligent they are and how well they can perform varieties of different tasks. So we expect to continue to see advancements far beyond GPT-4 over the next months and coming couple of years. So when you prompt a tool like ChatGPT, you put text in and it uses its knowledge of language to generate text that's semantically correct and semantically meaningful and grammatically correct. And it does this by predicting the next word in a sentence. So if you put in a question, like what color is the sky, the next most likely word based on all of that text it was trained on is blue. So if you say, I want a marketing strategy, it will use all of its knowledge and just give you a pretty plain marketing strategy. But then if you start giving it context, say, this is my role, my business is in HR, my objectives are this, here's what has worked in the past, this is where we're located, and this is what we're specialized in. It will continue predicting the next word, but it will do that based on all of the additional context you gave it. And with that, it's able to at least simulate a pretty high level of reasoning and get to really high levels of performance across a massive variety of tasks. But like the human brain, once you learn something, we don't necessarily know exactly where it is in the model. So this is really important because once information is stored in it, it can't be deleted. So when you're using these models, you need to make sure that you know what the privacy settings are and whether the tools you're using will be allowed to train on your data in the future. Because if it gets trained into a future model, then having that information deleted will be pretty much impossible. So some real world examples. You have Octopus Energy is ChatGPT handling 44% of their customer queries and Klarna handling 2/3 of tasks. In pharmaceuticals, you have Moderna using ChatGPT across all departments, from clinical operations to clinical development to legal and operations. In sales, I'm working with some clients looking at using it to do things like tender review, taking that process that could take quite a long time to review over 100-page tender from hours into seconds, and increasing the speed that they can actually write their tenders by a significant amount as well. And then in consulting, they've also done some studies recently using AI to finish 12% more tasks, 25% faster with 40% higher quality results than those who weren't using AI. So in that situation, it's actually elevating the lower performers quite a bit more than the higher performers, but it's having a huge impact across a ton of different industries. So managing risk. Any technology comes with risks, and generative AI does have some unique risks, but they're manageable. As I mentioned, security and privacy are critical. If you're using the free version of ChatGPT, they recently announced an option for you to turn off training. Now, the turn off your data being used to train those models. So it's really important to make sure you have that setting on. It's still using kind of consumer terms. So if you're a business, you probably want to be signed up with their paid model at £20 a month per user. But you do want to make sure that you have and understand those settings and you understand how their teams are using it. The implications here are that when they train the next model, you could have intellectual property about your company or your customers or personally identifiable information being trained into those models, so that when someone asks about your business or one of your clients' businesses on a future model that's released, it could then output private details and information about that. So the biggest first step I suggest to anyone is just make sure you understand what tools people are using and that they have the appropriate settings in place. From a reputation point of view, the tools do make mistakes. They do something called hallucinating, where they can come up with an answer that's factually incorrect, but is also really, really convincing. So if you or your teams are using these tools, you want to make sure that you understand the output at a level that you can confirm whether it's correct or not. You also want to make sure that you have processes in place when you're building it into your business and your workflows, so that a human knows that they're always accountable for that output. You can't hold an AI tool accountable for its output. It can't explain why it came up with an answer. So it's really important to have what's called a human in the loop when you're implementing this technology. And to help manage this risk, it's really good to have an AI policy. It helps clear guidelines ensure safe and effective usage. And these should be kept up to date with coming changes to laws and regulations. So we have the EU AI Act that has passed now that will be coming into force in a variety of ways over the next 12 to 18 months. The UK will have their own. In America, they've got different rules and regulations coming in that are different for each state. So a good, clear AI policy backed with some education so people understand and it's meaningful to them will help your employees understand the risks associated with using the tools, but also guide them on what's appropriate. And it shouldn't just be a policy of what not to do, but you can think of it as a policy to help actually encourage innovation and experimentation if you do it right. So AI and hiring decisions. One of the questions that Eloise received was, how can AI be used to support making hiring decisions and reducing bias? There's actually been a recent study showing that AI reflects our societal bias, where they showed that female names are scoring lower than male names in male-dominated industries. And since these systems can't explain their decisions, you have to be really careful with how you're using them, especially if it's an automated process. Part of the EU AI Act and I think aspects of AI related regulations in the UK are quite clear around using AI to make certain types of decisions. So you need to make sure that a human can help make these decisions. Now you can kind of adjust this by doing things like removing the name before using the tool to review a CV against a job description. But you do have to be aware that it is a reflection of that societal bias because it's been trained on all of society's text that they put on the internet. So some other ways that you can use AI, expanding your own skills. You can leverage AI to better understand and match technical roles with experience. A lot of the times, especially with technical roles, it's a bit of a checklist, meaning that some people that might have a lot of relevant adjacent experience might not be seen as right for a role when they could be even more qualified. So using it to understand and analyze how those people could fit into that role, or even how they could fit into other roles, is a really interesting use case where it suddenly gives you or your hiring managers more skills and understanding of those CVs. Driving efficiency, you can automate initial screening or use it to support automation of initial screening. While you have to be careful on using it to make decisions, you can use it to kind of very quickly evaluate against whatever criteria that you might have. Increase your ability to search through, so you can use it to search through CVs for different things using natural language. And people are even using it to automate screening interviews. So people are creating AI chat bots where it looks like and sounds like you're talking to a human, and they might run a technical interview, be able to ask technical follow-up questions, and then give advice and feedback on that. And then finally, managing bias. While it is inherently biased, you can use it to ask for feedback and support. If you prompt it right, it might be able to give you alternative points of view or help you understand where you might be applying bias. You want to make sure you're removing those names, as I mentioned, but you can use it to challenge that. One example, not necessarily HR related, but if everyone remembers Apple's big ad that flopped when they were crushing all the musical instruments, I was curious what AI would think if they had put that ad into, or the concept of the ad into chatbot, and asked for how different cultures might consider the ad. And interestingly, when I put a summary of that into Claude, one of the main chatbots that I use, it almost perfectly represented country by country what each of the countries had an issue with that ad when it came to its effect on how they thought about music and things that were special to them. And so if they'd been using that, it might have given them a deeper cultural understanding of what might have gone wrong there. So AI and employee engagement. This is a really interesting space at the moment. There's lots of different companies doing different interesting stuff with how they can integrate AI into different types of tools. I'm mainly focusing on things that you can do just with the general chat tools, but there are more specialized tools out there as well. Starting with onboarding, creating things like interactive FAQs about your business so they can quickly get answers is quite easy. You could do things like creating a contextually aware acronym translator for new employees. I think I could use that quite a bit in the past. And creating tailored materials based on new hires' roles, interests, teams, or projects. The ability to kind of create mass personalized materials is one of the things it's quite good at. From a learning development perspective, this is probably one of the most exciting places that AI is going to have a huge impact. Education is generally kind of a one-size-fits-all scenario, whether it's elementary education or senior school or university or within business. AI is going to give everyone access to a completely personalized tutor. Other companies are building things like learning platforms to personalize whole learning pathways. And it's going to get really interesting from a corporate point of view when you can develop or have automatically developed a learning pathway and personalized, customized courses relevant to people's actual job roles and duties. Often I know that those corporate courses aren't necessarily directly in alignment. So that's another interesting aspect. Excuse me. And then you can use AI for simulation. So I know some people that use AI to simulate sales training, for example. They put in a customer persona, they put in information about their product, and they build a little simulation for their sales reps or to kind of see what sort of objections might come up and then how people might actually respond to objections. Because it's trained on all of that data about society, it can quite accurately reflect and simulate different personas, whether those are people in a team or possible customers or customer issues, and respond in a way that's very similar to them. Same thing applies to customer service calls. Another way that AI can help engagement at work is just helping your employees add more value to the business. The ability to automate away or make mundane tasks that don't add value more efficient gives people more opportunity to focus their time on areas that add value. Giving them tools, it also gives them a tool to kind of expand their capabilities. Not only can you free up their time to do things that might be more interesting or engaging, but you can augment their skills and capabilities and use it to actually enable and empower them to do more. One of the examples I have for that is I'm working with a business at the moment. They've got quite technical consultants writing technical reports for their customers. these people aren't copywriters. They couldn't afford to hire a copywriting staff member to go through and rewrite those reports. But we're working to not only make that report writing more efficient, but working to make that report writing more user friendly so that their technical consultants can communicate more effectively with their non-technical customers that are receiving these reports. Finally, just as a coach, one of the ways that I use AI sometimes, being an entrepreneur, having my own business, I put in information about kind of where my business is at, what my business does, and kind of have a running long chat where I can ask it for like a little boost, a little bit of motivation, help me work through different problems. And I give it the role or persona of a coach, and it's able to respond really effectively and help me consider problems and challenges and opportunities from different angles. Another way I've seen this being used is some people look at it as a way to help them communicate more effectively with their team members. Some people put in their team members personality assessments that they've done in the past and a scenario and say, how can I respond to this? Or how should I interpret this? Especially for people that might struggle a little bit with kind of communicating effectively in a productive way. It's a really good way to kind of coach them through and help them understand better ways of communicating, especially within a difficult situation within a team. Other ways, there's a ton of other ways it can improve engagement as well. Analyzing qualitative employee feedback, giving people hands-on experience and training for AI will ensure that they feel prepared for the future. Identifying skill gaps, generating career paths, stress management tool, kind of conflict resolution, a little bit like the coach, but more formally put into different workflows within departments. So I've written us up as well, so like about HR and AI and other integrations, because it won't just integrate with your workflows. HR departments are about to start seeing perfect CVs and cover letters. While today it might be obvious if people used AI to write them, people that are really capable of using AI can already do this, but soon it'll be much easier for anyone to write perfect cover letters and CVs. So being able to understand and kind of fish through those is going to get quite a bit more difficult. I believe personally that personal relationships are going to be key here. Change. There's going to be a huge amount of change coming across a lot of workforces. And while there's going to be formal transformation programs happening in many businesses to get AI embedded in the business, there's also going to be a significant amount of informal change and unplanned change happening at the individual level or the team level, with people looking to embed AI into their workflows, some people quietly and secretly, but that has a lot of implications for the business, not only from a security around their intellectual property and privacy aspects, but also from a continuity perspective. If someone's leaving the business and they've automated a bunch with AI or they're using AI in a lot of those tasks, you want to make sure you can understand what those impacts are and how you can help support the organization through that change. Finally, learning and development. It's not just a tool that can help learning and development, but AI skills and AI literacy are going to be really critical to businesses in the future. This isn't just using it within your roles, but things from like a cybersecurity perspective, understanding that people will be able to fake your voice or your boss's voice and image in a way that's indistinguishable for any average person to tell, or even computer experts to tell. There's a lot of implications where AI literacy is going to become really important, whether that's the cybersecurity side, the kind of operational side, or procurement, or just navigating the future, because these changes influenced by AI are going to be happening faster and faster, and it's going to get quite disruptive. It's a really exciting time, and there's a ton of opportunity here. But building that kind of foundation of skills and knowledge within your business will really empower people and leave them able to better navigate that future.
Eric, just before you move on, if you don't mind, on that slide, I was going to say, I find it fascinating and terrifying all at the same time. But even in our small world of recruitment, I can see, or we can see now, the AI in people's CVs. if I get a CV through, and the telltale signs are things in boxes, aren't they? You can see whether somebody's put something into chat GDP and then kind of copied it into a CV and not changed any of the formatting. But you can tell in just some of the ways that the CVs are written. But the thing I find really interesting is, which is great for us as an agency when we're coaching people on interview techniques. If we've got a role, then I'll ask AI. I'll put the job spec into AI and ask for typical questions that we want to ask, especially if it's a more complicated position. So we're targeting the right kind of questions to be able to help candidates prepare for interviews. But what then I think is really scary is that they can then put in their ideal answers, put the question in to get AI to generate an ideal answer back, and then use that in the interview. So I think we are going through a time where, as interviewers, we need to be really savvy and careful that actually we're asking competency-based questions to make sure that the people that we're interviewing actually do have the knowledge and the experience of what they say they can do, just because they might have the perfect interview answer that actually isn't their knowledge at all.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to get even more challenging as people can have like an earbud in telling them exactly what to say on a remote interview.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it's going to have to come down to personal relationships and the relationships you've built up in the past. I don't know what the implications are for younger people. The same challenges apply to sales as well. When every salesperson you talk to says the perfect thing about their product and how it fits with your business, regardless of how perfect it is, it has, some interesting challenges coming up for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because I asked people in the group, what they use it for, because I was thinking, well, just to get a baseline of what people in HR are using. And I know from speaking to other people, I mean, we use it a lot for, helping with job descriptions or helping generate job descriptions, interview questions, not creating the perfect CV, but certainly helping with what kind of skills to pull out for different job roles. But I know, and then from a business perspective, I use it a lot for, and other people have agreed, social media posts or ideas for content. After our meeting, I did ask AI to create me a sales and marketing plan specifically for vanilla recruitment, just to see what it came up with, because I'd been putting one together myself. And you're right, within seconds, it generated for me what was a very passable, plausible, basic sales and marketing plan and strategy, which I just thought was, crazy. So things that would have taken people hours and weeks to do can just be done so quickly.
Yeah, the potential there is incredible. And the next kind of step in this, as far as what the technology might look like in a few months or the next 12 months, is, and I haven't talked about it because it can trying to keep time short, but something called agentic capabilities. So rather than you having to they give it instructions and say, here's all the information about my business. I want you to go create a plan that does this, and this. You could say, go create a marketing plan. This is my business. Here's access to all my stuff. And it would create a plan itself. And then it would go out and execute each step of that plan, whether it's market research and competitor research, reviewing your conversations with potential clients, reviewing your reviews, looking at your data and seeing what's worked and what hasn't in the past. It can actually go out and kind of do that multi-step planning and then execute those steps sequentially or in parallel, whatever is appropriate. We're mostly seeing that applied at the moment when it comes to software development. There's a lot of stuff is initially all being tested in software development because these are all developers building the products. But we're really quickly going to see these tools being able to go and take multiple steps down a project plan and path.
Wow. Yeah, it does blow my mind. You know, I know that, you know, we're using, you know, the real kind of the basic levels, and that's why I was interested to hear, you know, what other people are using it for, because I think there's so, like, you know, even when you said like on the previous slide, was it a stress management tool?
Yeah, stress management.
And I even thought, I kind of thought, I don't even know how you would use it as a stress management tool.
I mean, you can just put in that you can tell it that its job is to play coach or psychiatrist. Well, that latter one's a bit ethical, risky gray area, and it can walk you through steps. So you can explain what's stressing you out, or you can have it ask you, and it can walk you through different steps to manage it, ask for feedback. We're about to see it blowing up, for better or worse, in AI, psychology, and mental health applications. I think within business, actually building applications specifically for that, there's a lot of risk, and you need to make sure that you build tools like that really carefully to flag up certain behavior. But people will be building incredibly personal relationships with these tools in totally unique ways and using them to take on roles for people that they might not have access to. Lots of people can't afford mental health support, or just the idea that they feel more comfortable talking to one. And as the tools also have the ability to understand emotion in a voice as well as express emotion in response, they're going to be even more effective at kind of communicating in those more difficult, challenging situations. There's one company called Hume AI that reads your emotions and then responds based on tweaking its emotions to make sure its response maximizes your happiness. So it will change its emotional tone in response to how you're speaking, as well as emotions on your face if it has access to video.
Is that used mainly in customer service?
It's brand new, but customer service is probably going to be one of the first places. It'll probably be used pretty heavily in sales, but we're getting more regulation there, at least the EU, and I believe the UK will as well, as far as how you can use those kind of almost biometric attributes or psychological, because there's a very thin line, if there's a line at all, between adding value and making the experience better for a customer, or going from persuasion to manipulation, especially when we're not 100% sure how these tools are exactly working and what the long-term impacts might be of those types of interactions.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, because I read something the other day, and I'm, you know, whether you agree with this and whether this is, you know, they were saying that the best way to get, or the way to get better results when you're asking AI things, and I know this is a really basic thing to suggest, but is just to have a very conversational style with, you know, with the AI. So you're asking it to say act as vanilla recruitment, or acting as vanilla recruitment, or taking the point of view from vanilla recruitment, and, you know, and asking it whatever you're looking for, and then when it comes back, you're redefining or feeling like you're having a conversation with somebody that you know, say, for example, if I was sitting next to one of my colleagues and trying to explain something, if they weren't coming back with the right answers. So is that the best way to get what you want out of AI, or is there any other recommendations you've got?
Yeah, I mean, that's one good way. I think just using it in general and seeing how it responds in a variety of situations. Every situation and context will be different. There is some best practice, so giving it a role, making sure you're giving it enough context. You can think of it like hiring an intern that's really, really good at a whole bunch of stuff, but doesn't know anything about your business. Every time you start a new chat, there's no memory or limited memory depending on what what tools you're using. So what context and what information would you give like a brand new intern or a brand new employee to expect them to be able to accomplish the task that you're asking of it? And that means that you're giving enough information for it to complete that, but it's also organizing that information in a way that makes sense. So yeah, starting with a role, making sure there's a clear objective, explaining how you want the output. Like, do you want a one-word answer? Do you want it to explain its answer? Do you want it to show its reasoning before giving you an answer? That can also improve the quality of response. One of the tricks that I've found really useful is asking it to, after its response, ask me 3 to 5 questions about what information could I have given it that would have improved the quality of the response. Because it's sometimes difficult to think about every single possible thing that would be helpful. We're so used to communicating with humans where there's subtext and there's history and there's tone of voice. Like the example I like to use if you're asking a brand new employee to, or you're asking an employee to write a presentation for a customer. They have a lot of information about the business. They might know your relationship with that customer. They probably know the objective around what you want that presentation to accomplish, where they might be in the sales journey, if it's a potential customer. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of words of unspoken context. So I find asking it to tell me what else might be helpful helps me see what I might be missing. And over time, you start to understand and get better and better at including the right and relevant information. I mean, just a year ago, if you included too much information, it would kind of confuse these tools. Now you have tools like Claude that can take 350 pages of text. So you don't necessarily have to worry about how much giving it too much information for most tasks.
Okay, great. Sorry, I went completely off track there for you, Eric, but
No, it's always, I mean, there's the biggest challenge with talking about and I mean, looking at where this tool fits into a business is that the end goal of a lot of these companies that are building it is what's called artificial general intelligence. So a tool that can do all knowledge tasks at the same level as the average human. But that means that the tools, by definition, fit into almost every task in some way. But the key is understanding where is it actually going to add value? How is it going to impact the people using it? Is the task that you're looking to speed up or automate, is that a key part of people's learning and development? If you're if you're automating away a task that is a key to a junior's development and that junior role is a really important part of your employee pipeline, then you end up in a place where you might have gained a whole bunch of efficiency in the short term, but then you've lost out on those employees with those key skills.
Yeah, because I mean that is the danger, isn't it? Where AI will reduce the number of people that are needed to do jobs.
Yeah,
certain jobs.
definitely. It's a huge fear, and I think it'll impact some areas more than others. It's going to create a lot of jobs as well. But there's definitely an important cultural component when you're introducing it to your business or even talking about it in your business. When I'm working with clients, one of the key places that I work with them on is kind of communication, making sure that they're not only leaving people feeling confident about how it will impact their jobs, but they're also understanding that it's not just going to trigger fear about their jobs within their current role. If they see the job market shrinking for what they're doing now, that's going to kind of trigger more existential fear about the future and their kind of place in it. So making sure people are understanding and they see learning these skills as preparing them for that future and it being a kind of a key aspect of that preparation. So you're kind of managing not only the fear internally and how it might affect the business by communicating clearly about your intentions, where you're able to at least, but you're also managing that kind of external fear and making people feel confident that they'll be given the tools and resources and knowledge to kind of
Mm.
navigate that change. There will be some industries that will be impacted more than others. Like customer service is definitely going to change drastically. I think some companies, especially smaller companies, will probably have a lot of ideas for those people to then switch to tasks that add more value. Other businesses, unfortunately, probably won't see it that way, and it's just going to be it'll be a mix of kind of how it's impacted, but it definitely will be creating whole new industries and jobs, and it's really hard for us to imagine at the moment what might be possible and what might come in the future.
Yeah, definitely. But then, we've been through this before, just in different ways. Job roles change constantly over decades and over time. So it's embracing it and finding different career routes in the future, isn't it, for people and for our children?
Yeah, exactly. I've got a I'm doing a keynote at a event for year nines and tens coming up about AI and its impact on education and career paths. So I'm spending a lot of time thinking about that while I get that presentation sorted out. Because on one side, it's probably the most exciting time in the world for people to be at that point where they're about to go into a ton of change and possibilities where people can far more easily start their own business or have access to skills that might have taken them years to develop previously. But it's also going to mean things are changing really fast and there might be a lot of uncertainty. So making decisions now on how you want to approach that can feel a bit daunting when there's a lot things moving a lot faster than they have historically.
Great. Sorry, I'll let you carry on.
No problem. Just want to talk a little bit about what I do. So how I work with businesses, kind of there's three main ways. One is assessments, so helping people understand where AI can deliver value from their business. There's a few different ways I can approach this. One is from how can AI help solve a specific problem or help a certain objective be achieved, or looking at workflows within teams or across whole businesses. Where does AI fit? How might AI affect this workflow or process? If you think every workflow is a number of tasks that are broken down, AI can quite often fit into one or many of those tasks associated with a single workflow and make it either far more efficient or have it add value to customers and stakeholders in one way or another. Then implementation, I help businesses implement AI. So taking those assessments or looking at just based on specific requests, how can they work AI into that workflow? So I work with customers to do the discovery, understand how those workflows and tasks happen, and then I go away to kind of make sure it's a minimal disruption to their team. I figure out how it's going to fit in. I can build the automations or come up with like how they should use the AI tools, and then I do hands-on support with education and a collaborative session with them to get that implemented into their workflows. And then strategy and policy, like I mentioned earlier, having an AI policy that's clear, concise, and doesn't just restrict usage of AI, but encourages experimentation and innovation and curiosity around it is really key to making sure it's being used safely within your business. And it's also an AI policy is also starting to become a requirement for some insurance companies if you're using generative AI within your business. And then just general strategy. I like to say, don't think of creating an AI strategy, but think about how AI can help you achieve your strategy. So yeah, just I think it's an exciting time to think about transforming your business with AI. It's incredibly capable. It can fit into a ton of different areas of your business. My best advice is to start exploring use cases, experimenting with it, whether it's in work roles or even at home. I use it sometimes to give me recipes based on the different food I have available. And
That
one
idea.
of the meals cooked for my wife recently is that she said it was the best meal I'd ever cooked. And I just put in, here's all my spices, here's all my fresh ingredients. prioritize using the fresh ingredients, and I want this kind of meal. And it did a really good job. So I offer free discovery sessions, kind of tailored to specific businesses and their needs as well. So yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. No, thank you. I hadn't even thought about using it for recipes. I used it last night to give me an itinerary for a weekend away, based on the fact, 40-year-olds, when I was, pushing it there, 40-year-olds going away for a weekend, to a specific location, what are the best things to do? And I thought, brilliant, rather than spending, hours on TripAdvisor and looking at different things, it had it done in, I don't know, 5 seconds. So, and I think we use it in everyday life without even, like you said, without even knowing we're using it. So yeah, I think it's great the recommendation just to explore. And what I would say to anybody is, I had a session with Eric for vanilla a couple of months ago, and it is really interesting. So I would definitely recommend booking a free session with him, just so you can talk about your specific departments or your specific companies and what he can do for you. So Eric, thank you so much for your time today. Before I close off the
Thanks, Elise.
meeting, has anybody got any questions that they want to ask Eric that's tailored to your business, or just any AI questions at all? Oh, okay. So Sarah's asked, do you think AI is a real positive for HR professionals who are standalone and they need to automate those repetitive tasks that they simply haven't got the time to support, they don't have a team to support? Or do you think it just removes the human touch and the connection to people that HR provide? Just interested in your thoughts, whether you think it's a good thing or in HR, or it reduces the personal touch.
Um, I think it's just having an intentional approach, understanding where it can add value and what tasks and workflows it makes sense to potentially automate. But there's also an approach like called augmentation. So you might be able to accelerate some of your tasks while maintaining that human touch. With these tasks with AI, especially within HR, it's really important to have kind of a human in the loop. So I think it's a great question, because it means you're thinking about the right things that really matter, and yeah, having that intentional approach, so you understand not only how it's going to impact your time, but how it's going to impact that personal touch. Would it free up time to have more of a positive impact in a different area? Or is it something that you want to maintain yourself? And there's definitely going to be a back and forth in a lot of businesses as they rush to automate things that might add value or have value, because humans are involved for reasons that are a bit more intangible or harder to define.
But yeah, she said great, thank you. So unless there's any other questions, I will, just thank you, Eric, again for being with us today. What I will do is I will send the recording out to everybody who was booked to be on the session, with the slides and Eric's contact details, so you can contact him directly, or feel free to ask me any questions if you in between now and next week when the video will be completed, edited. Sorry, forgetting my words. So Eric, thank you so much. And if anybody's got
Thank you,
any
Elise.
other requests for future topics, then please do let me know, and I'll be happy to organise speakers and interactive sessions. So thank you, Eric, and I'll close off the meeting today. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.